but basically there's over 500 million podcast listeners every single week, and that's global. People think that everyone's got a podcast these days, which it feels like that, but there's about 4.9 million podcasts that currently exist. Of those 4.9 million podcasts, only 15% of them are actually active beyond like 9 episodes, I believe is the
Mhm.
number. So that means there's less than half a million podcasts. There's half a billion people that are listening to podcasts every single day, every single week. And so I always tell people, like, just by creating a podcast for your brand and being consistent and strategic with it, just by doing that one thing, you are you are better off than 85% of the
Yeah.
people out there.
Welcome back to another episode of The Content Crowd. I'm your host, Trevor Grimes. And if you're new here, The Content Crowd is a podcast where we like to explore what makes content resonate, from creative habits to point of view shifts to behind the scenes breakdowns and just all of the good insider information so that listeners and me alike can kind of stop mimicking others and start making something that actually matters. And today I have a very special guest, and we actually just before this was talking all things podcast. So there might be some very juicy tidbits about some podcast secrets in this interview. So welcome my guest, Adam Sokol, who is the VP of Marketing at Share Your Genius. Adam, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Trevor. I am excited. I hopefully will give those juicy tidbits to keep people's attention and keep them listening here.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't accidentally overpromise something you're not allowed to share.
No, I'm
But
ready.
but
I'm
we have
pumped. I'm
some.
ready. Hopefully I can meet the expectations.
Yeah, so just to start off and give people some context to like why I just threw you under the bus and said that you're going to give us all the juicy podcast secrets. Just tell me a little bit about like what you do for Share Your Genius, and I always like to say, what do you tell people you do at parties, because that seems to be kind of like if you're in a group full of non-marketers, it's the hardest thing to explain.
Yeah, I love it. So it's gotten since I came over to Share Genius, it's gotten much easier to describe what we do at parties. I'm 40, so I don't go to too many parties now. But when I do, I tell people Share Genius is a content agency. We specialize in video production. So think like podcasts, think event capture and production, think thought leadership content. If you have executives or internal subject matter experts that you work with that you want to put some content out there, we specialize in building all of that out for you, everything from the strategy to creating the shows to doing the post production, and then taking all that content and turning it into a full content engine for you. So helping you turn all those shows and videos into newsletters and thought leadership blogs and pillar reports and all that good stuff. So, and I'm our VP of marketing here. So my job is to do what we're doing right now, which is tell the world about what we do and hopefully fill our own pipeline.
Yeah. No, you first of all, you said you just kind of like dropped your 40, which is crazy. I didn't know that. You look very good. I would have thought you were in your 20s. So
Thank you. You
um
know what? I've hit the age now. I'm gonna tell people that, and if I get
yeah.
that compliment, I'm gonna take it. I appreciate
Yeah,
you.
no, that's completely sincere. When you threw that, I was like, he's got to be joking. There's no way. Also, like, I don't know why I made the question, "What do you do at parties?" I've also probably not been to a party, and by a party, it was probably like a get together after like work, and
Yeah,
but it's one of those where it's like when I think about that, I'm actually like describing to like my family who still like they have no idea what we're
exactly.
doing or anything. But no, that's really cool. I love that you like in describing the entire production of the podcast and everything. You're not just talking about recording it, editing it, and giving them some clips and sending them on their way. You mentioned like reports and other pieces of
Mhm.
content after that, which I think is like something that is not just with podcasts, but I mean I encounter it with all content really, of thinking that it has like maybe one life, and really content, for a video or a podcast or whatever it may be, can live
Mhm.
so many lives. So I'd love to know, like, real quick, if you have I'm sure you guys have got a standard of what you kind of do, but I'd love to just like a
Mhm.
quick walk through the process of like taking somebody from recording a podcast and then turning that content into all the other pieces that can breathe life from that.
Yeah, 100%. That's fantastic question. I love that. So my background is in branding content strategy. And so one of the things that I do here at Share Genius is I'll talk to clients and I will do a content audit for them. Because to your exact point, like when 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when people started hearing about podcasting, exactly what you said, it was like, You record something, you put it on Apple Podcasts, and you hope for the best. Whereas now, all of the different tools, like we're on Restream right now, Riverside, all these different places that you can record content. Not only does it give you really high quality video that then you can take and cut up into shorts for, you know, LinkedIn or YouTube Shorts or Instagram or TikTok. Obviously, that's like the first level, but
Yeah.
you also get access to the transcript. And when you have a transcript, you know, you can do so many different things with it. Something I love, like we're a very small marketing team, but I'm able to produce content equivalent to a team that's substantially larger than mine because, you know, there's AI tools. Everyone knows about
Mhm.
ChatGPT and Claude, Perplexity, whatever Copilot, if you want to call it, you use. Like, it's obviously a skill set to understand how to prompt these things. But like when you get these transcripts, the coolest thing is like, you know, we can take this conversation and I can, you know, put it on one of those tools, and I've built out our own agents that understand my voice and the our branding. And once you do all of that, I can go in there and say, hey, take this transcript and build it out in Trevor's voice about, you know, insert topic here. And it's not going to get you all the way there, but it's going to get you partially there. It's going to get you 75% of the way. Then you can go in there as a content specialist and clean it up. And so what's great about that is like I will take content that we've done and I will turn it into a thought leadership blog. Anything I record with anybody is going to be a written piece on our website. That's like boilerplate. You should start with that because people think SEO is dying because of AI, but it's really just understanding that maybe people aren't going to click through, but they're still going to get answers when they go to ChatGPT or Google and search for things.
Mhm.
And if you're coming up as the answers routinely, they're going to learn who you are. They're going to understand, you know, where you're at. And the reality is, I love podcasts, I love video, but you know, you have to meet people where they are. You might have people in your ICP that don't listen to podcasts, they don't really go on LinkedIn, but they open up your newsletters. So just understanding that each of those touch points is an opportunity to still hit your ICP, but hit a different portion of your
Mhm.
ICP. And then the last thing I'll say about this, and I'll shut up, is, you know, it used to be it took 7 marketing touch points for everyone to remember you. I think that number is like 11 or 12 now,
Yeah.
which means you just have to be out there. You have to, you know, recording a podcast and letting it live on its own merits isn't enough. That podcast has to be a full length piece and 6 clips, and those clips have to be different places. And so it's
Yeah.
just it's understanding that the content you produce now is very much a long game, and that it will pay off if you're consistent with it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, I think, you know, people starting out trying to put more content out there, and when I say people, I don't mean just like individuals but like companies too. They're like afraid of like giving somebody fatigue over sharing this one piece too many ways. And even for like this podcast is live right now on YouTube, but after I go through and re-edit, edit it, I'm going to upload it as a YouTube video anyway, and it's going to live on YouTube podcasts are. So there's three different ways that
Mhm.
piece of content is being served. And for a while I kind of struggled, like, should I re-upload it? I'm like, well, yeah, a live video that's already gone is not going to be pushed in the way that a new video is, and it's not going to be pushed in the way that a video that is a podcast, or audio that is a podcast is. So there's understanding, like, like you mentioned, the 6 videos, they got to go in different places, and somebody who opens your newsletter may not be listening, and there's a lot of ways that you can make, like, it's hard to like give somebody fatigue at this day and age with one piece of content that you create, because there's so much out there.
Mhm.
I would venture to guess that each person that is follows you on LinkedIn or in your newsletter is not in all these other places also.
Yeah, I there was a conference I went to a couple years ago. I don't think it was SaaStr, but like I don't even remember who was giving the presentation, and I don't remember the data point they were putting up there. But I just remember this quote. They literally said like, the moment you as a marketer get to the point where you are exhausted saying something out into the market, that's when it's just starting to resonate. She basically
Yeah.
was like, if you have a tagline or a campaign, like sometimes you have to run it for 6 months, and you as the marketer, you're like, you know, you're putting it, you're like, God, I gotta figure out another way to film a short form video to say this exact same thing in a different way. But it's like you need to be consistent because
Yeah.
there's so much content now and there's so many different places people can ingest it. You just have to like it's just part of the game now is understanding like it's quality over quantity still, but quantity matters as well.
Yeah. That I love that you mentioned that, because I've got to say this to a friend of mine now, because we were on the phone last night just talking about just his like business stuff. And he was like, I got to keep making videos, but I don't know what else to talk about. I've said everything there is to say. And I was just kind of like, well, I was like, hey, well, why don't you come on my podcast and you can say the exact same things, but the backdrop will be different because it's just a different setup. All your videos you're recording walking through the woods, and this one you're going to be sitting at a desk with us, and it'll be completely different, and it's going to
Mhm.
look like a brand new piece of content to somebody. So I love that you mentioned that. I'll have to throw that at him and be like,
Yeah.
hey, like if you're exhausted now, that means that like people are just kind of starting to get it. Like,
Just scratching the surface. Yeah,
yeah.
100%.
um, so uh, you're doing audits for people. You're helping them create content. What is your like? I don't know, maybe not selling point, but proof point to like doing podcast and doing video and kind of doing like all the things. Cause I think like, we're at this point where it seemed like people were starting to grasp like how important video and all those things are. And now
Mhm.
it seems like people are, and when I say people, again, I just mean people who are getting started are kind
Yeah.
of like pulling back from it. It's almost like, why would I record a podcast? There's so much out there. Why would I make a video? There's so much out there, but there's still room to grow. There's still data points pointing that that should be the thing to
Mhm.
do. So I'd love to know, like, sort of what are your proof points on those kind of things?
Yeah, so this is the part where I'll give some juicy nuggets and some data points that hopefully will interest people. So here's some numbers for you. Every year we do a annual podcast, which is something a bit novel. I know people don't usually think of a podcast as a thing you release once a year, but we do every year on Valentine's Day we release a podcast episode that we call "Wait for It," and it's sort of like the state of podcasting and some data that we uncovered. And this is stuff you can find all over the place, but basically there's over 500 million podcast listeners every single week, and that's global. People think that everyone's got a podcast these days, which it feels like that, but there's about 4.9 million podcasts that currently exist. Of those 4.9 million podcasts, only 15% of them are actually active beyond like 9 episodes, I believe is the
Mhm.
number. So that means there's less than half a million podcasts. There's half a billion people that are listening to podcasts every single day, every single week. And so I always tell people like just by creating a podcast for your brand and being consistent and strategic with it, just by doing that one thing, you are you are better off than 85% of the
Yeah.
people out there. Like imagine if I told you we're doing email marketing, but we're only one of 15% of people doing email marketing, you'd be like, I got to get in on that. So that's one thing is, you know, if you can just be consistent, you can be better than 85% of the people out there in the terms of like showing up where your ICP might be. So that's one thing. Two, we talk about video. Everyone's always looking at their phones, whether you're on TikTok or Instagram or anything like that. Like people are all over the place on social media now, but YouTube is actually the biggest discoverability platform for podcasts. It's outstripped Spotify and Apple in terms of where people actually discover new
Yeah.
podcasts. 72% of people discover podcasts for the first time by watching them on YouTube. But interestingly, then 65% of people who listen to a podcast, or sorry, watch a podcast on YouTube then transfer over to listening to it. And it makes sense if you think about it. Like maybe you're sitting at your desk and you catch 10 minutes of, d- uh, Tom Segura's podcast, whatever it is. You might
Yeah.
sit there and you might watch it, or they're on podcasts are on Netflix now. You might be scrolling through one night and watch the Bill Simmons podcast on Netflix for a bit. But eventually, like you're gonna get up, you're gonna go for a walk, you're gonna make dinner, you're gonna put your daughter to bed, whatever it is, and like you
Mhm.
want to listen to something, you're gonna start listening to it. And so you might not have discovered that stuff if you were just looking for a podcast to listen to, but you will discover it because YouTube is the number one discoverability platform for podcasts. And it's also still the world's biggest search engine. Like YouTube is a bigger search engine than Google. And I don't think people
Yeah.
realize that. So you you need to be able to put the video content out there because that's how people discover you.
Yeah. No, that is, I mean, I just did that yesterday. I like not discovered a podcast, but I like saw a clip from a podcast that I was aware of, just haven't watched in a while, and went to YouTube to like watch that one part of that podcast that I wanted to see. I wanted to kind of see the context of the clip.
Yeah.
But then like just started it over and just listened to the whole thing like while I was working yesterday. And then yeah, like you're like when you get time to, well, I gotta go cook dinner now. I want to finish that. I want to keep listening to it, or I gotta go, go for a walk or whatever. Um I mean, that might even be why, like, I've used Spotify for, like, I don't know, 10 years, and I just last month, like, canceled Spotify and moved over to YouTube. I
Mhm.
was already paying for YouTube Premium, and I was like, "Why don't I just use YouTube Music and all these other things that come with it?" And so, been listening to all my podcasts and everything on YouTube. So, in a way, like, knowing that it's all there, because I know, like, Spotify was trying to pull video over, and
Mhm.
it's just not the same it just doesn't work the same. It doesn't feel as organic over
Yeah,
there, so
yeah, I agree. Like I've seen some of the video stuff on Spotify, and it's fine. But to your point, like no, it doesn't matter how a lot of apps are trying to be everything to everyone, and the reality is just like I use Spotify for music, and I probably always will.
yeah.
I use YouTube for video, and I probably always will. And like that doesn't it's not a bad thing. It's just something that you need to understand as a marketer, being like, okay, if I'm doing that, I'm definitely not unique. I'm not a unique snowflake, as they would say in Fight Club.
Yeah.
Like I'm not special. Lots of people do that, and so just thinking that it's like, all right, well, I need video and I need audio. And you mentioned like seeing a random clip. One other thing, and this is like the softest of soft plugs for Share Your Genius, but like there's so many AI clipping tools out there. And I will just say, like, if you can work with a company like ours that does this stuff every day, like
Yeah.
you can use different tools, and like I won't dog any of them by calling them out by name, but like I've used a bunch of AI clipping tools and they say it will help you go viral, but there's just no context around the clips. They just
Yeah.
hear a single word. Whereas if you can work with a producer who's listening in to every single show and understanding the concept, like, okay, Trevor's talked about this type of thing a couple times in the past. We want to put multiple clips out like that. Like the more contextual you can get those clips, the more I'm gonna watch it and be like, "Oh, I wanna see what else he had to say about that." So that just you mentioned that, and it's like a really good point of like, you can see a clip and it'll either be like, "Oh, that's great," and then you move on, or be like, "Oh, I wanna hear more of that," and it's like, that's such a
Yeah.
world of difference.
Yeah, no, that is a man, you kind of just you made me just like rewired my brain a little bit, because I'm often trying to when I'm like making clips for things, I'm like, I want to fit the entire context of the clip in this 30, 45, maybe a minute, however long. But I don't know, like you kind of like, I think I need to start trying to like make it a little bit more interesting, leave a little bit of it out, or leave it
Mhm.
where at least like not where it feels like it's abruptly cut. Cause I know what
Yeah.
you mean. Like you using like AI stuff, sometimes it just like abruptly cuts at the end of a sentence and you're like, well,
Mhm.
did the person who posted this even watch the whole clip? Like,
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was talking about earlier about how you can use AI tools to get something like 75% of the way there. I
yeah,
was doing a LinkedIn live yesterday with a friend of mine who he's a content creator. He owns a content agency. His name's Dom Odaguardi, and like his specialty is short form video.
yeah,
And like the reality is making clips like that and making them good is a skill.
mhm,
Y- I know we're in this world where everyone wants to be able to do everything instantly and be good at everything instantly. We did another LinkedIn live with another creator, Heike Young, where like she talks about like people start recording themselves on short form video on their phone and then they give up because they're like, I suck at this. And it's like, you don't suck at it. You've just never done it before. And it's a different experience.
yeah,
So it's just understanding like it's a skill set and there's two routes you can go. You can take a fair amount of time to get good at yourself, or you can work with somebody and like kind of learn the tricks of the trade with them while they're helping you produce high quality content.
yeah,
There's some shortcuts, but there's no shortcut to like doing it really, really well yet.
yeah. Yeah, that's there is a I just want to like reiterate, there is a lot of skill that comes into making really good short form. Like
Mhm.
people, I think like well, there's both sides of it. There's people that are super good at short form and they kind of struggle to do long form when they move over. But like, if you're mostly been a long form creator, you like to just yap for a long time. When you're trying to create short stuff, you're just like, man, how do I, you know?
Trevor, we have just met and you just described me to a T. Like I've been a podcast host for a decade. I love yapping. Nothing makes me happier than being like, "Hey, you're going to get to nerd out with somebody for 45 to
Yeah.
60 minutes." And then yeah, when I go to create shorts for myself, the drafts, it's ugly. I'm like, "Oh my god, I just talked for 98 seconds and didn't say anything
Yeah.
I wanted to. This is garbage."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, we hopped on 5 minutes before, and I haven't stopped talking yet. So, it's like, there was no silence of like figuring
Yeah.
things out. I was like talking to you while I was doing all the stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a skill. This is like a tiny thing you mentioned, but I just you may not even have any like rules around it, but I'm just wondering. You mentioned like you were talking about the percentages of how many people are listening to podcasts, and if you make it to 8 or 9 episodes,
Mhm.
then you're top 15%. And then and this could be incorrect, but I think what I heard recently was like if you make it to 21 episodes, you're like top 1%, or you're pretty high
Yeah,
up there.
yeah, I don't have the exact stats, but I would have to imagine that's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, podcasting now is something where our CEO Rachel talks about this all the time. Like when we have people that come to us that want to work with us, one of the questions she'll ask during like the strategic conversations we'll have at the beginning is, "Do you have a podcast idea or do you have an episode idea?" Because
Mm,
people will think they have like, "Oh, I got this podcast and we're gonna do it." And then like she'll help them understand, like, no, what you just described is like a really interesting 90-minute conversation, but it's not
mm,
15 episodes across a season. And I think what ends up happening right now is like doing a podcast is such a low entry point. Like mics are
yeah,
cheaper than ever. You can get ring lights and stuff like, and you can put your stuff out there really easily. But I think what ends
yeah,
up happening is people do those first few episodes, or like you said, 20 or less, and then they're like, I don't know what to do, man.
yeah.
And so they just kind of abandon it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I hit that plenty of times, but it's one of those things where I was like, well, if I can, luckily, I've structured my show where I'm interviewing people who are way more like talented and interesting than I am. And so by them coming on, agreeing to be on here and just talking for 45 minutes, they're making me look really good. And so when I have to do my own episode, that can kind of just,
Hmm.
when I don't have a guest this week, I just do my own episode. Those could be little tidbits of thoughts. They're like 15 minutes long. So
Yeah,
then I have the next amazing guest next week.
I love it.
Um, but you mentioned like the big thing is and you just talked about that. How do you stay consistent? You're staying consistent, and you've got to be able to continuously post or at least upload. Do you have a baseline of what consistent like means or what it involves? Like obviously if you can record and post every week, that's
Hmm.
that's that's the I feel like that's like the smallest thing you should be able to do. But like in terms of like you've got 21 episodes, you're in the top 1%. Now it's like, okay, I want to grow. What does that level of consistency look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is like a lot of stuff in content. Like, there's no one specific answer
Right.
in the sense that there's different types of podcast approach. There's what we're doing now, where it's like you meet somebody, you have a some the topic, but you're gonna have a free flowing conversation. This the challenge for something like this is obviously like you said, finding the guests, and like that's the hardest part. But there's other, there's fully scripted shows. There's like fully episodic seasons of things. Think like all the different various like murder mystery type podcasts and stuff. So there's going to be different cadences. For me, I would say if you're doing like a B2B brand type show, I would say you want to have the show out every other week. But crucially, like we talked about before, turning those shows into other things. I am of the belief you should be putting short form video on your LinkedIn, on your Instagram, on your YouTube, like 3 to 5 times a week, like
Hmm.
almost every single day, because it's not overwhelming. The majority of people aren't gonna see every single one of those
Yeah.
videos, and it's also they're 30 to 60 to maybe 90 seconds of a show that you've already done, and you wanna get that discoverability out there. If there's written stuff, like I'm more of a writer on LinkedIn than I am. I just got done saying how bad I am at doing short form video. Unless I have our team editing it for me, which I know if I'm editing for myself, I'm like, this is going to be brutal. I'm just going to write my thoughts. I would say, anywhere from like 2 to 4 written posts if you can do it. But like from a video content podcast standpoint, I'll say the show every 2 weeks, and then take those shows and turn them into almost daily content for your
Hmm.
different channels. Like you should be able to do that again, especially if you're working with a production team, or even though they may not be like the absolute best idea, if you're using like an AI tool, like most tools will give you decent enough clips that you can put
Yeah.
stuff out there. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. Yeah, because I know that like being consistent means a lot of different things. But finding a place where you can be consistent in a way that is also like beneficial. Because I think like another thing is just like running out of ideas, and then if you keep having ideas, just keeping up the will to keep going, and
Mhm.
fight through all of it. So I think having a goalpost like that of like, yeah, if I can just make 3 clips a week and I can make 4 written posts a week, like I
Mhm.
can handle that, and that at least keeps me going and gives me some hope that this this thing is going to carry on.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think the data point is it's like it takes something like 14 or 21 days to form a habit. Like I mentioned I have a 1-year-old daughter, and because of that, I get up really early and I go work out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that because I'm like a tech pro. I kind of am by default, but like I'm not telling everyone like I get up this early and
Oh
like my
no, are we? If we work in SaaS, are we tech
yeah,
pros?
that's the
Oh
thing is like
no.
I'm not one of those people who's like I get up, by the time you wake up, my day's done. It's not one of
Yeah,
those, but I have found because I consistently get up in the morning, like it gets easier and easier to wake up. And the same
yeah,
thing with like creating the content. If you can like quote unquote force yourself to get like a month where you're like, I'm going to be diligent about and you can schedule this stuff too. Like you can create all the clips and then you can schedule them all on Monday morning to go throughout
yeah,
the week. And same thing with like your written post. But like if you can dedicate yourself to being like it's kind of like meal prep. If you can go like every Sunday night, I'm going to schedule out my 3 or 4 LinkedIn posts and my YouTube shorts.
yeah,
If you can just be diligent with that for like 2 to 3 weeks, it'll just become habit and it'll be much easier to do. So like that is where people who fall off doing this stuff where they do fall off because they just don't make it part of their schedule.
yeah,
I literally block time in my calendar where it'll say like social content or like social outreach and like what gets scheduled gets done.
yeah,
Um, and like if it's on my calendar, I'll do it. But if I
yeah.
if I don't put it on there, I'll be like, whoops, it's Friday afternoon. I didn't do anything this week.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
bad on me.
Yeah, same here. Gotta have something, annoying, like, to remind me of,
Yeah,
what I'm doing. Yeah, so I've been asking you a bunch of questions about different things, so I'd love to, like, kinda give you the opportunity to brag on yourself a minute, and I'd love to, like,
sure.
well, talk about something that, like a piece of content or a campaign that you worked on that you were, like, really proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. So I used to before I was at Share Genius, I was at a company called Orem. It's a live conversation platform. Basically, it helps connect your sales teams with prospects over the phone. It's like specifically for cold calling and outbound dialing. It's a very hard thing to do. When you are making cold calls, you get rejected a lot. Listen,
Mm,
I loved promoting the tool. I would answer cold calls to see how people interacted with me, but I didn't like getting cold calls. No one does. So there's a lot of like negative connotation around sales development. And so
yeah,
we created a campaign called Sell Yeah, which was like a play on Hell Yeah. And the entire idea around it was like loud, bright colors. It was a really simple thing people could say. And it was all about flipping the script from like, I have to sell to I get to sell, like
mhm,
shifting the mindset of sellers to create opportunity. It's like, oh man, I don't have to do follow up. I get to do follow up. And it's something I think about in my life relentlessly. Like every challenge can be an opportunity. And I know that's lots of like woo woo leadership book type stuff. I literally have a stack of leadership books next to me. So maybe I am a tech bro. But this Sell Yeah campaign, it was specifically designed just to be like a rallying cry for people to understand like this is an opportunity. And like the ICP of Orem is sales leaders and then sales development representatives. And that ICP really buys into like the psychology of like hyping yourself up and like doing these things. Like for salespeople, if they can like get good vibes and they get like if they call somebody in the morning and they book a meeting, like they are more inclined to keep
yeah,
calling and trying to keep going. So this Sell Yeah campaign was, we did a bunch of like branded hoodies. I jokingly told our demand gen person there, I was like, I just want a bright orange hoodie that says Sell Yeah on it. And I'll be happy with this campaign. And we
yeah,
got those. And like, they were like, I'm talking like traffic cone orange.
yeah,
Like when we first opened them, we were like, oh, this is actually bad. Uh-oh. But like people went nuts for them. They wanted them
yeah,
all over the place. And it just like, it had this opportunity and we succeeded because people just got excited. It was really simple. But yeah, it was just Sell Yeah in all caps, an exclamation point. We did a bunch of virtual like events around it and different stuff, but it just stuck. It was something
yeah,
that like 2 years later, I was at an event someone was like wearing a "So Yeah" t-shirt. And I was like, all right, absolutely. That rules. Like it was so
Yeah.
that was really cool. I was really proud of that for sure.
No, that's incredible. I don't want to get too much into like the psychology of things, but I'm interested. Like, why do you think, or maybe not why do you think, like, you probably have the data to support some of that, but like, how did just changing the mindset of like, this is what I have to do for a job, from this is I get to do this as a job, like, how do you think that
Mhm.
did it change the way the sellers talk to people, and it made those people more receptive, or were they, and not to get too woo woo like you said, but did they feel the energy, through the call, and they were just more hyped about buying something because the person selling was hyped? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, there's all like there is data around like if you're like people say you got to smile and dial like, and it's true. Like if you are smiling on the
Mhm,
phone, there is statistics like there's scientific data that's like the people you are talking to on the phone can like feel that energy,
yeah.
and so it was really just this thing where if you watch a group of sales development representatives call on like a sales floor, like you can feel the energy. I was really fortunate to get to go see some customers and like people who were in office, and
Mhm,
you can feel that energy, but like the majority of companies aren't in office anymore. I work from home. I love that I work from home, but like from a sales development representative standpoint, it is a job where you are either making cold calls or you're sending cold emails or you're trying to do cold like LinkedIn selling, and you get rejected a lot. And like from
mhm,
an email and a LinkedIn standpoint, those rejections are usually passive. Like people are just not responding to you. If you make cold calls and people pick up the phone, you're you are probably going to get rejected because the majority of people aren't going to book a meeting with you and they might not be too happy about it. And so like it is a psychological thing where like if you get told no 15 times in a row and you're sitting in a room or your family room by yourself, you can just start to beat yourself up. And so it was just like trying to remind people constantly like it's an opportunity, you get to do this, like how lucky are you that you have this opportunity to hit quota, to increase your, the amount of money you're making, because power positivity is a real thing. Like you
yeah.
can I'm one, I beat myself up all the time about stuff, but like I have found if I can be positive and just keep like thinking like it's not a challenge, it's an opportunity, it
Mhm.
really does sort of shift the chemical nature of my brain. And we found that it just really helped, the reps who were doing this
Yeah.
as well. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's super powerful. I think it's a good reminder for all of us, like, even when work is not challenging, I think like thinking about like it's just I'm doing like something boring or whatever. Like, oh, it's an opportunity to, like, I mean, when you really think about it, like it's super cool that I write for a living, or I create content for a living, or
Yeah.
whatever. Like sometimes I think we get behind that because it's like, oh, I'm a tech bro creating content for a SaaS company or something. But like, I mean, honestly, it's pretty awesome that I'm not like, you know, uh doing hard manual labor that I
Mhm.
wouldn't like. I'm getting to write or create for a living. Like that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Like, then we can get off this topic. I'm sure people are like, "All right, that's enough." Like agreeing with each other. But I will say, like,
Yeah.
the way I try to think about it, and maybe people can do this too, is like I think about like if I told 20-year-old Adam, like, "Hey, you're going to be doing a job where people are going to be asking you questions specifically about the thing you do, but like you're going to get to yap into a microphone." Like I remember the first time I listened to podcasts, and I was like, "Oh my god, how do I do this? How do I get to be the one who like sits and just has long form conversations with people?" I was
Yeah.
obsessed with them from the jump. So like that's the way I think about it. If I'm like having a hard day, I have to remind myself like you get to hop on and do an hour long conversation with somebody about stuff that you are crazy passionate about. Like
Yeah.
that rules. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's the way I try to think about things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super helpful. Just so like a good mindset. Got to remember how good we have it.
Yeah.
Um, does that so I mean, does that sort of thinking translate, or make its way over into like how you create content? Like when you're creating content, are you coming from a place of like, I'm smiling while I'm writing this, or like this is like an opportunity while I'm creating this, while I'm outlining this draft?
I I try to, for sure. There's absolutely, I mean, you're right about like, no matter how much positivity you can try to put out in the world, it's still a job. And like, yeah, there's evenings when I'm building like, a like marketing deck, or I'm doing an audit for a company and I'm like looking through their content, and it's like there are moments where I'm like, oh my God, this is tedious. But like I try to like I try to approach every day being like, okay, this is like I have an opportunity to either like learn something or change someone's day for the better or teach somebody something as I like, step into a VP role. Like I'm starting to realize like, oh, I actually know things that other people don't. This is great.
Yeah.
So I do try to be like, okay, what's something I can do today that puts some positivity out in the world. So yeah, I guess I haven't really thought about that way, but yeah, I guess I do sort of approach content in my daily like life. Like, how can I approach this as an opportunity and not a challenge?
You need to think of, obviously, like when it comes to content creation, we don't have as good of a play on words as sell, yeah, but you gotta find something. Like what can we need a campaign for us, for
Listen,
the creators.
I am like forcing upon my team like just let's talk, like just very
Yeah.
straightforward because that's what we're doing. I'm still workshopping it though. I'll get back to you if I can come up
Yeah.
with a good
Okay.
one. Like so, yeah,
Okay, I'll yeah, let's we can talk about it off air sometime,
love
go
it.
through some fun, because I love wordplay type stuff. Like I need to like trademark it maybe because it's probably been stolen, but I had like a short like 3-day like email course that I did that was called like misconnections, because it was like
Mm,
that's your opportunity to reconnect with the person, like going back to the Craigslist or like the old
yeah,
like misconnect. So I love like things like that. That's like a
100%.
yeah. All right. This is the final question. This is the big one here. But this is how I like to end all episodes, is just kind of asking somebody to, when we talk about creating content, obviously like one of the most like maybe one of the most subjective things. I'm asking you to be really objective about this, and just what's the one hill that you will die on when it comes to content creation?
Yeah, content about content is the worst thing in the world. So like if you go on LinkedIn and people are like, this thing is dead, or like, here's how I can tell your post was written by AI. And it's like, just
Yeah.
stop. It's so exhausting. When I was at Orem, it was cold calling is dead. And now it's like content is like, I can tell this was written by AI. And it's like,
Yeah.
great. So can everyone else. Who cares? Like you can just either have a genuine or original thought, or you could just say nothing that day and it's okay. The world will
Yeah.
continue moving on. So like
Yeah.
just I always tell people be anything but boring. Like if your content makes me happy, makes me angry, makes me sappy and sad, at least I remembered you. Don't be boring. And
No.
content about content, like, that just gives me the ick, as people used to say 6 months
Yeah.
ago.
Well, so this is I think this is a very interesting like thought. And I interviewed somebody like a few months ago, and he was talking, he owned like a video agency, and he was like, I don't create content around like video stuff. Like sometimes I will if I do something really cool, but like I'm just like creating stuff that is like cool and interesting to me. So I've been kind of like battling with that, because as somebody who is, creating content and to hopefully educate somebody, like how do I create things that are not about the things that I am trying to educate on, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Let me clarify, like behind the scenes stuff, that's great. Like I have lots of friends who are video content production people, and they'll do content around like here's my rig for when I'm doing like a man on the street type thing.
Mhm.
The content about people telling other people like what not to do. Like on LinkedIn,
Um,
there's this really fun, huge air quotes. There's this really fun thing where people are like, LinkedIn is professional. You shouldn't post selfies on there. It's like, no,
right.
LinkedIn is a social media channel. It's just a social media channel that people use to try and get a job. Like
Yeah.
but it's still social media. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like if people follow me on LinkedIn, you're following Adam. And part of Adam is I'm a dad, I'm a runner. Yes, I'm a VP of marketing, but
Mhm.
I'm also a writer. I also like food. I also have a cute dog. Like I'm gonna post about all that if I feel like it, or I'm not going to. And you'll never
Yeah.
see me be like, you shouldn't be posting that, you know, matcha latte you got. Like it's not for me, but just I don't need to interact with it. So yeah, this the
Yeah.
people that are like, this thing is dead, or like you shouldn't do this. It's like that is
I
I
I
will die
get
on
you.
that hill. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I that totally makes sense. Yeah, I agree. I think like there used to be times where you're afraid to like post a picture of yourself on like LinkedIn, but
Mhm.
now it's like, I mean, if I'm on LinkedIn, I'm almost looking at it the same. If I'm not actively looking for a job, then I'm probably just on there to like grow a network. I mean, we don't for a generation or a majority of the workforce that works from home, like that's our like I need to see what these people look like, and like
Mhm.
I don't know how tall any of my coworkers are. I need to see some pictures for comparison. I need to see them standing next to like a street sign,
Mhm.
while they're on a walk holding their latte or whatever, so I can start gauging how tall somebody is. I got to
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's just like people for a long time on LinkedIn specific. I'm talking about LinkedIn specifically, but like I
yeah,
think when there's a professional connection, people were like afraid to be themselves because they were worried their brand or their company was going to see it. I will say now there is much more brands are understanding that like the people of their company can be incredible influencers, creators, subject matter experts for them. And so that it is like there's this turning of the tide where they're letting them be their own the versions
yeah,
of themselves. I've just been, and maybe it's because I'm a white man and I've been like bluntly like just like brazenly aware of that my whole life. I've just kind of always been myself on every social media platform. And sometimes it's done great. And sometimes people have been like, "Mm, not for me." And like, that's okay. That's all
yeah.
right. We don't have to be everything to everybody. So
Yeah,
now I'm
that's
ranting a
great
little
advice.
bit.
Now, well, I got one more question for you, and it's
Mhm.
only because you mentioned that you liked food. So I gotta
Yeah.
ask, like, what's uh your like the you got to eat one meal for the rest of your life. What's it gonna be?
Oh man, that is such a good question. I'm gonna say so I'm a vegetarian, but that's
Okay,
a vegetable lasagna. I would eat lasagna like
okay,
I eat lasagna like Garfield. Like it's bad how much lasagna. So I would say I think I would say lasagna.
okay. Vegetable lasagna? You'd
I
have it.
mean, yeah, it doesn't have to be, but like just
Okay.
obviously no
Well,
meat sauce. But yeah.
I'm interested though because I've never, I've had vegetarian like versions of things, but I don't know about lasagna. So what's the? I mean, you're just minus meat sauce. Everything else
Basically,
is
yeah, basically it's minus meat sauce, but you can add like spinach, zucchini, eggplant, that type of stuff in there. But
okay.
yeah, it's basically just lasagna. It's still just like the pasta sauce and cheese just
Yeah.
on repeat. I need you to know I'm gonna think about this quite. I'm gonna like email you
Well,
afterwards, be
yeah,
like,
no,
here's
because
6 other
honestly,
things.
yeah, that's a terrible question. Just to be
No, it's a
honest, like
great
that's not a good
question.
question because it's like, well, one, I mean, if you ask me this, I would think, well, am I getting different meals? Am I eating the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Because that could potentially change. Or do I get different meals if I choose a breakfast
Yeah.
item? Am I eating breakfast for breakfast, lunch, and like? There's a lot of rules that I need to know before I make an
Yeah.
informed decision.
I think my other answer would be a breakfast burrito because it is safer
Yeah,
on all.
that's
But so
yeah.
what would yours be? Would like just to put you on the spot too?
I think uh, you know if it was like a year or two ago, I probably would have chosen something different. But I think now, like when I think about it, I think pho, I think would be because
Yeah.
I could it's a lot of variants, but I love how it's like it's not as savory as like ramen broth, but it's still pretty
Mhm.
savory. I like the combination of cilantro and lime and jalapeno, like
Yeah.
those things, the fresh the sprouts of some kind in there,
Mhm.
and then like if you want to meat or not, like you do without meat, and it's still pretty awesome. So I think that's
That's a
I think I
good
could do that
that's
breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I think I
yeah,
could do
that's a
that.
good answer. I will say pho is one of those things, like, there's been a ton of really good, like, impossible meat replacement things. Pho is one of those where, like, the broth is so good, and
Yeah.
it's so, like it's usually, like, from bones and stuff, like, vegetarian pho is really just like vegetable soup, and
Oh
that's
yeah,
fine,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
definitely not as good. That is one of the I've been a vegetarian for a long time, but that is one of the things pho and, like, a corned beef sandwich are 2 things I think about, like,
Oh,
on a
yeah,
weekly
yeah,
basis. I'd be like, "I do miss that," but I think at this point, it would kill me, but,
yeah, yeah.
it'd be
No,
worth it. What a
cool.
way to go.
Well, now I've got to go like try to make some like vegetarian lasagna because I've never thought about that, and that sounds real. I mean, that sounds really good. It's something
Yeah.
I might actually. Does it still take like 12 hours to make? Like,
Oh, of course. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
okay. When I've got a whole day to dedicate, I might make vegetarian lasagna
There you
next.
go.
So. Well, awesome, Adam. Thank you so much for coming on here, for letting me just yap at you, and also get like all the juicy tidbits, and also just for entertaining some of my like silly questions. I really do
Of
appreciate
course.
you taking an hour out of your busy day. Yeah, I will. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next week.